Hello, friends and neighbors, and welcome back to the poem of the day for today, Friday, September the 12th, 2025. Congratulations, you've made it to the end of another work week. If you go by the 5-day standard work week, at least that we have in the United States, I know that's not the case for everyone, but happy Friday nonetheless. And today we will read another Shakespearean sonnet. I think this is our fifth, and we're reading from Shakespeare Sonnets and Poems, the Folgers edition. Um, I was paging through again recently, and I didn't realize how many additional poems he had written, Shakespeare, um, in addition to the sonnets. That was something of a surprise for me. I've read none of those that are not sonnets. I've read all of the sonnets and about half of the plays, maybe a little over half, but I've read none of his other non-sonnet poems. So that's something I hope I'm able to get to it someday. Today we are out of the series of poems, the section of sonnets that might have been directed to the fair young man, and instead we're in the back end of the poems that the last 30 plus that are directed to who's known as the Dark Lady. And scholarship suggests that it's not too much of a stretch to read the speaker of these poems as William Shakespeare, or some really close approximation of him, some extension of him, which we often don't do in poetry. We often don't assume that the speaker is the writer, but scholarship suggests we can pretty much do that with these, and that the woman to whom he's writing, I don't believe they know her name, but that there obviously was someone very much on his mind at this point. And so the poem that we're going to read today is Sonnet 138. And like the one yesterday, I gotta say, it troubles me a little bit, and I have some gripes, but I'll get to those in a little bit. It's a very clever and wonderfully well written poem. To say that Shakespeare was a good poet is not much of a hot take to have, but I still marvel as I come across new or revisit long forgotten pieces of his writing and see how truly wonderful he was. So this is Sonnet 138 by William Shakespeare. When my love swears that she is made of truth, I do believe her, though I know she lies. That she might think me some untutored youth, unlearned in the world's false subtleties, thus vainly thinking that she thinks me young, although she knows my days are past the best. Simply I credit her false-speaking tongue. On both sides, thus is simple truth suppressed. But wherefore, says she, not she is just? And wherefore say not I that I am old? Oh, love's best habit is in seeming trust, and age in love loves not to have years told. Therefore, I lie with her, and she with me, and in our faults by lies we flattered be. Okay, so in this sonnet, the speaker loves this dark lady, the mistress that he has, and she loves him back. They're in a mutual loving relationship, but it's a relationship that's built on deceit and on lies. And the beginning of the poem sets up a tone that is honest, but also somewhat coy, somewhat devious or knavish, perhaps. It's not bemoaning the lies. It's not celebrating getting away with the lies at her expense. It is declaring that they are lying and immediately rationalizing it because, well, she knows. So at the beginning, he knows that she's lying. My love swears that she is made of truth. I do believe her, though I know she lies. So I basically tell her to her face, oh, yes, whatever you're telling me, I have no problem with this. I fully trust you. But in the back of my mind, I know that she's lying. And I just go along with it. And I think you can also read that as I do believe her, that maybe she thinks she's telling the truth. Then the next two lines we learn that she thinks that, or at least she behaves as though he is a naive, untutored young man. And somebody who doesn't know the world's false subtleties, it says. Then he reveals that he's actually old and getting older. And kind of ironically, or perhaps paradoxically, he's old and getting older and thus is wiser. So he's not the naive young man that she thinks he is. And yet, this kind of charade that they have going along where he's buying her lies to her face plays into her belief or understanding that he might be a naive man. Yet, we get several, even though we only have like one volta, we get several of these turns, these although and but and and. And the first one comes about line 6. Although she knows my days are past the best. So the speaker knows that his mistress knows that he's actually not as young as they're both pretending that he is. And then he says, simply, I credit her false speaking tongue. So the reason why I can lie and get away with it is because she also is lying and getting away with it. And it's this interesting thing where I'm lying and you know I'm lying, and I know that you know that I'm lying. And so that sustains their relationship. Then we get a turn at 8 and line 9. But wherefore says she that she is not unjust, and wherefore say not I that I am old? So he wonders why are we not telling the truth? If she knows that I'm lying and everything that I just said, why would we not be telling the truth here? And his answer is, love's best habit is in seeming trust. Their relationship is sustained on this illusion. And I find the grandness of the statement to be kind of troubling and objectionable myself, that love's best habit is not in seeming trust, it's in actually trusting. But perhaps the speaker's saying that that trust is always incomplete, or that trust is always somewhat faulty. So if you're able to seem trust and to call to attention, to call to the forefront that we're not entirely truthful with one another, as opposed to pretending to be entirely truthful with one another and maybe lying to oneself, that's perhaps more sustainable for the relationship. I read that line more that it's the speaker's own justification toward himself to say that, oh, well, the reason we keep going in these lies is actually that's just the best thing that long relationships do. And he also justifies not lying because age and love loves not to have years told. So older people don't love to hear their years counted, is what he says. And then in this final couplet, therefore I lie with her and she with me, and in our faults by lies we flattered be. This is really a lovely couplet, I think, because it again is kind of a summary couplet rather than a turn couplet. But we have a pun right here on the two uses of lie. I lie with her, the first time meaning sleep with, and then the second time in our faults by lies we flattered be, is probably more just telling the mistruths, but you can almost flip them. Therefore, I lie with her, I tell mistruths with her, and in our faults by sleeping together, we are flattered. So it's this nice pun that really works both ways, I think. Also, there's a chiasmus in line 13, which is set up as a structure of A, B, B, A. The most famous of these that I can think of is Keats's beauty is truth, truth, beauty, A, B, B, A. And we hear this in I lie with her and she with me, I, her, she, me, which that kind of doubling or that mirroring then I think also underlines the way in which they see the other person as a liar and then see themselves as a liar in that mirror. And so their faults flatter them, which is some alliteration right at the end, faults flatter. And there's other sonic qualities to the poem that I noticed as I was reading. In the second quatrain, particularly as he's trying to justify the lying, it becomes more artful and more musical, almost as though this language is more practiced. So you can hear in line 5 the TH sound that I'm going to emphasize for the purpose of drawing it to your attention. Thus, vainly thinking that she thinks me young, although she knows my days are past the best. And so then we get that S, those S sounds in there as well. Knows my days are past the best. That picks up again at line 8 with the S's on both sides. Thus is simple truth suppressed. And then we get the repetition of those rhetorical questions. But that middle quatrain, when he's trying to justify it, is when the language is most musical, which I thought was interesting. So this is an artful sonnet for sure. Again, as all of Shakespeare's writings are, they, as the kids might say, they're all bangers. But it's again another one where I'm hoping there's a certain deceptiveness or coyness on the part of the poet or the speaker, because I find myself a bit troubled by the ideas about love and relationships that are expressed in there. That's all I have for you today. I hope that you enjoyed the video and can take a look at the poem yourself and perhaps offer alternative perspectives or just things that you found that I did not draw any attention to. But in the meantime, please enjoy your Friday until we meet again tomorrow, and I wish you all peace.